The panelists at the Tony Elumelu Africapitalism Institute's annual board meeting included Mr. Rasheed Olaoluwa, the Managing Director and Chief Executive Officer of the Bank of Industry, which is Nigeria's pioneer and most successful development bank; Dr. Jim O'Neill, Chairman, UK-based Cities Growth Commission; and former Chief Economist, Goldman Sachs, which is one of the world's leading financial institutions; Amir Ben Yahmed, the Managing Director, UNAFRIC Group, and the President of Africa's CEOs Forum. The others are Tandika Ikiwane, Special Advisor to the CEO, the New Partnership for Africa's Development, NEPAD, and Matthew Bishop, the Globalization Editor of The Economist magazine. The equally high-quality audience consisted of development scholars and practitioners from within and outside Africa, key decision-makers from the public and private sectors, as well as the international development community. Zain Verji, former anchor of CNN International, moderated the dialogue.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, welcome. I'm so happy to be here in Abuja and to spend this important time and conversation with you. So let me say to you also, Karibuni. It's really about African solutions for African problems. So my own trajectory has followed the path that's led us to the kind of conversation that we want to have today, because one African solution is Africapitalism. The bottom line is basically do good financially, do good socially. That should be the takeaway that you have today. It's the process of transforming private investment into social wealth. It's about the belief that entrepreneurs and society can prosper together.
In his opening comments, the founder of the Tony Elumelu Foundation and convener of Africapitalism Institute Forum, Chief Tony Elumelu CON, said that developing SME in the continent can be achieved with as little as $10,000 support for the sector.
If you have $10,000 to 1,000 people, will be amazed, the kind of impact it can create in helping to achieve what we're discussing here. Because the whole essence of Africapitalism is a realization that the private sector has a key role to play in developing the continent. But the private sector does not start from the air. It starts from building entrepreneurs. So indeed, we think we can indeed help to move the needle in fundamental fashion by empowering the young ones, encouraging risk-taking at some level, and at that point, not by giving $100 million to people, but little money, they test, prove their ideas, and it comes to a level where the private equity firms on the venture capitalists can now come in to put money. But that initial stage, where they need to prove their concept, the ideas they have, that is when people need, in my viewpoint, the real catalytic support that can make a difference. So it's a very good point to realize.
That comment set the tone for discussion among panelists. The chairman of the Cities Growth Commission United Kingdom, Jim O'Neill, opined that Africa should use the power of its economic numbers to foster growth of the continent.
Africa has collectively over 1 billion people, I think, in its 54 countries. Nominal GDP of about 1.8 trillion dollars, so pretty much the same size as 2 of the 4 BRIC countries. But people don't talk about it in the same way they talk about any of the 4 BRIC countries. And so, to me, what excites me about what these guys are creating here is unleashing more than a billion people to make Africa collectively a BRIC. And of course, there's lots of things that go behind that, but it's in essence about unleashing the entrepreneurial spirit to allow the continent to be the massive economic powerhouse that its large population wants.
The Bank of Industry MD and CEO, Mr. Rasheed Olaoluwa, focused on the creation of enabling environment and favorable business policies.
What is it that the private sector wants? What do you think would be enabling in terms of an environment and the conditions that can be created to operate successfully?
Thank you very much. Interestingly, I see it at the intersection between the public sector and the private sector, in the sense that the DFI that I manage, is owned and funded by the government, but our customers are 100% private sector. So I know what the feelings are in terms of requirements, consistency of policies. They would like to be able to plan, and they would like to have the fiscal policies that are favorable to doing business. So for instance, if you set up a manufacturing plant to manufacture a particular product, because there is a 60% import duty on a competing item, you don't want a situation where, as you are commissioning the factory, there's a change of duty rate, on the imported item that then makes the numbers not to be economical, for the manufacturing company. So they want some consistency so they can plan, into the future. I think relative to a long time ago, it's become a lot more consistent, and I think that the challenge really is in terms of expanding the scope, for the private sector to be able to operate. So we're looking at what are the risks that they face, and how can they mitigate, those risks.
Amir bin Yahmed of Group Yoon African highlighted the role his organization is playing to ensure the development of intra-Africa businesses.
What we're trying to do is to see how we can create more African entrepreneurs. So for that we need ideas, we need a favorable environment, and there's also something that we need is money, financing. We wanted to talk about some examples, a few of them that I'm familiar with, whether it's Tunisia, Morocco, Mauritius, to another extent Botswana. These are countries where at a certain level, political level, they have decided to focus on strategic industry or strategic sector. And once they have decided that they were their priorities, they created a very favorable framework environment in this, for these industries. They finance the companies that they thought were the best equipped to succeed in this industry. So the strategic side of the problem for me is very important, because we often oppose public sector, government and private sector, but there's nothing that the private sector will ultimately do without the government initiative at the beginning. But because the government can prevent everything and can also favor everything. So one of the true goals is to lobby and talk about strategy. What is the strategic positioning of your country? Which are the sectors you want to invest in, and who are the companies that you can help through financing and other means?
To fast-track growth and development, Africa must engage in serious entrepreneurship development.
What is happening everywhere is that there's a reappreciation of the value of entrepreneurship, that essentially we're in a period where the future economy needs to be created, and you need the brightest minds, the people with the great ability to take risks, try new things, think out of the box. You need those people to be empowered, and I think Africa has a huge opportunity to tap into the extraordinary energy and creativity of its people, and to figure out how to scale up and empower and finance those people with their ideas much better than has been done maybe in other parts of the world. So there's a chance really for Africa to actually leapfrog ahead of other places in terms of designing the capitalism of the 21st century by getting in touch with the entrepreneurs that are manifestly all over the place here. You just can't go anywhere in Africa without seeing the entrepreneurial spirit in action. It's just figuring out how to take the individual entrepreneurship and quickly find the best ideas and put resources behind them and scale them up.
the special advisor to the CEO of the NEPAD Planning and Coordinating Agency, Thandika Ingewane, emphasized on the need for both financial and trade inclusiveness among African countries.
It's a question of long-term stability. So that when we think about the long term for the continent, I think that we have to think differently when it comes to development. In addition to that, I think it's important to recognize that when you talk about questions of exclusion, inequality, this means for an economy that it's operating at subpar level. And I think that these are lessons learned as well. So that when we're talking about looking at development differently, looking at financing Africa's development differently, it means all hands on deck. It means harnessing the potential in all different sectors. It means a shared responsibility between the public and the private sector. It means bringing in, creating an enabling environment for the private sector to operate and to thrive and to flourish with that social responsibility as well in tandem with governance.
Jim O'Neill and Matthew Bishop also dwelt on policy inconsistency as it affects entrepreneurship development.
We have no idea in the UK who in 5 months from now is going to be running the country. And so life is full of uncertainties. But there are some things where you can expect reliability in terms of the framework. So policymakers have to do the simple things right. So a credible rule of business law where people know what happens if you do something wrong and what happens if you do something right. And it's clear for everybody and not one rule for the elites and another one for everybody else.
So there are no consequences to that?
So you need to make sure that there are consequences. And I risk saying something slightly confrontational. You know, Africa can help itself. There's no special magic wand. It's just people here doing the obvious simple things that have been seen to have worked elsewhere. And it's nothing mystical or magical.
You know, one of the things, if you look at Latin America, there I think that a lot of the countries that did grow up with strong business sectors really created business sectors that were controlled by a very small elite and didn't tap into their entrepreneurial potential, and there were a lot of problems as a result of that. I think one of the most interesting countries that's turned itself around, or in the process of doing so at the moment, is Colombia, where you did see a government come in determined to really, enforce peace in the country, but also enforce a lot of economic certainty, but also do it with an explicit inclusion agenda that was around how do you make sure that education is really done properly for all. You take a city like Medellin in Colombia, which was one of the most violent, feared cities in the world. I remember the captain of the Colombian soccer team got murdered when he went home after scoring a goal in the World Cup at one point. I mean, a terrible place. Now it's fantastic. It's a great city. Lots of positive stories happening. So I mean, it's a different part of the world completely. But I think they learned that lesson that you've got to. It starts from the top, and it's about creating systems that are really clear, predictable, inclusive, open.
The panelists also fielded questions as well as comments from the audience.
Africans are the only ones that can develop Africa. And nature does not allow vacuum. If you do not do your thinking, others will do it for you, and it may not be in your best interest. That is why Africapitalism is very, very important, because it's saying that Africans can do it, and they are laying the foundations. But let me come to what Nigeria were trying to do to further this process. And what we have done, my office has put together innovative reforms, which is private sector friendly. It will be in print next week. And I will urge some of you to take a look at it. And those reforms are geared towards supporting the private sector.
My question to the panel is, what do you think Africa needs to do differently to promote trade and industrialization? Because the word capitalism started from those two key points.
If Africa must develop, it's going to be a commodity-based industrialization. It's like starting from what you have to get what you need, you know, and it's basically about local value adding. And I also agree with what Matthew said about, you know, approaching some of the major multinational companies that are, you know, very active in the key sectors. You know, bring them to the local environment and maybe partner them with local players. I was in China late last year, and I attended a UNIDO conference where they spoke about SPX. SPX is a UNIDO program which basically inserts local SMEs into global value chains. You know, it's also one way of ensuring that we're able to get the technologies transferred, the experience, you know, to domestic players. So I believe that document is a major recommendation that all African countries should actually take very seriously.
How do we encourage the women to be carried along? Because even if the opportunity is there, we don't know. And if we know, we are shy to come and take it up. So I'm thinking on behalf of the women who are across below the ladder, that men should assist us, encourage us, and inform us.
The recent, you know, government policies, I'm being Nigeria specific now, are very favorable towards women. You recall that the 220 billion naira MSME fund, which was launched last year by Mr. President, 60% of the fund is dedicated to women entrepreneurs. 60%, that women are actually having a lion's share of the fund. So I think if you approach, you know, a microfinance bank or any of the commercial banks that are able to access funding under that scheme, you know, they can help you with your application.
You know, for these startups, they don't really need large sums of money. Like I said, you know, anything ranging from, you know, $50,000 to up to $500,000. You know, but the whole idea is to take them from that startup early stage, you know, to a point where they can actually go to, you know, proper financing, you know, private equity funds to come in. But at that early stage, you know, where it's about proof of concept, it's about ensuring that you can go into, you can generate cash flow and all that. That's where they need support. And a lot of Nigerian, you know, young men and women are showing great entrepreneurial zeal, and they need support, and that's what BOI is determined to do.